Okay, I think it's about time. Let's get started. Welcome to the very first Northwestern University Admissions Alumni Panel for FGLIs. FGLI is the pronunciation of the acronym First Generation in College and Low Income Students. So for those of you who might not be familiar with that term, that's what we're going to be talking about. And our purpose tonight is to more or less show you that Northwestern is a very FGLI-friendly university. Because that's going to be very important to all of you, because no matter what resources or majors or programs the university has, they're no good to you unless they're accessible to you as a FGLI. And also to let you know something I found out, you're probably going to be very important to universities as well. This past year, the U.S. News and World Report rankings used FGLI success as a major factor in their evaluation of universities. So I'm happy to say that Northwestern ranking went up a little bit based on that new criteria. A lot of elite universities, went down a little bit, weren't happy. So I think they're going to have a really big newfound sort of emphasis on FGLIs and FGLI programs. And, they're going to be recruiting you with all their new programs, things like that. So what I'm hoping that we'll do here is to show you that Northwestern's commitment to FGLIs, it's very long-term, it's very deep, it's very sincere. It's just kind of part of our campus culture. People have always been really receptive to FGLIs. Our president is a FGLI. I don't know how you could do much better than that. So with that said, I'll introduce myself. I'm going to be the moderator tonight. Again, my name is Karen Miller. I was an undergrad pre-med back in the 80s. I did my senior research project on first generation students at Northwestern. And the provost ended up calling me by the end. He found out from students, or I advertised for subjects in the student newspaper. And he just asked me about my research and what I found out, and basically how they could help. And so we started having little fireside chats, little get-togethers, just some informal meetings, but that kind of got the ball rolling. And again, that's going back like almost 40 years. After I left Northwestern, I went to a combined degree MD, MBA program, and I worked my way through in the pharmaceutical industry and also as a teaching assistant. And from there, I went to a designated healthcare shortage area, which I took advantage of for some of the accelerated loan repayment options. After that, I came back to Northwestern in the 90s in the research park. I had a healthcare web startup, which I eventually sold to America Online. And since then, I've just been doing consulting in the healthcare industry and raising kids and stuff like that. It's kind of my lazy girl job. So let's go on and introduce our panel. First up is going to be Paris Mehta. Paris is a 2020 graduate of the McCormick School of Engineering. He did several engineering co-ops as a student, but ultimately he pursued finance as a career, starting out in analytics. He's currently based in New York and works as a private equity consultant doing due diligence work.
Hey everyone. Sorry. Karen, should I start?
I'm gonna introduce all four of you, and then you'll come on.
Oh, got it. My bad.
No problem. No problem. We're FGLIs. We tolerate, spontaneity. Okay. Where is it? Daniel Flores is going to be our second panelist. He graduated in 2014 with a bachelor's in communications and followed that up with a master's in 2015 from the Kellogg Graduate School of Management. And as an undergrad, he founded the first FGLI student organization, which was the Questbridge Scholars. Probably a lot of you are in that. He helps lead advocacy efforts for the Student Enrichment Services Department, which is where a lot of our FGLI programs are housed. He's currently a data compliance manager at Chicago Public Schools. He's previously been a management consultant at KPMG, and he's also been a revenue and pricing management at United Airlines. He still has time to be a musician. He plays mariachi music. He has his own TikTok, Trumpet Pepe. And on top of that, he has time to volunteer. He's a college access member with Posse and chair of the Latino Alumni of Northwestern and a Questbridge alumni member. Board member, I'm sorry. Third up will be Joel Pettit. He attended UCLA undergrad and received a law degree from Washington University. After that, he joined the Marine Corps, where he worked as an attorney. And then he came to Northwestern through the Kellogg Graduate School of Management, where he got his degree in 2017. He started out working after Northwestern in counterintelligence, then moved on to a healthcare executive position at a Fortune 500 company before starting his own law firm. And last but not least will be Marcia Griggs. She's a 1990 graduate with a dual degree from the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences and the School of Communications. And after leaving Northwestern, she went on to earn her law degree. And she's currently a professor at the law school at St. Louis University. So with that, Paris, take it away. You're up.
Yep. Yeah. Hey everyone.
Okay.
Thanks so much for the great introduction, Karen. Yeah. No. So I was actually a transfer student. So I went to a university based in New Jersey, and for several reasons I left. One, I was commuting, and I really wasn't a fan of that. I kind of wanted to get the college experience, and two, it was a relatively expensive school. Especially given like my family situation. So I decided to transfer, applied to a bunch of schools, and Northwestern was definitely top of my list because it met 100% of financial need. And I got in. It was actually only one of two schools I got in and got into. And it was a really easy decision for me to come to Northwestern, come to the Chicago area, like brand new experience. And I definitely really, really enjoyed it. The first year, it was definitely a culture shock for me. As you might know, like Northwestern, a lot of people come from quite a lot of money, and it was really an enlightening experience. Within the first 2 weeks, I distinctly remember that me and a bunch of the other transfer students were all sitting around a table, and I don't exactly remember the context, but everyone started saying what their parents did for work, and it was pretty wild, where everyone was saying, oh yeah, my mom's a software engineer, my dad's a surgeon, or a managing director at an investment bank or something like that, and comes to me and I'm like, yeah, my mom's a cashier at Walmart and my dad's not really around. So it really goes to show like what what a lot of people at Northwestern come from, but that shouldn't deter you one bit. Like after that conversation, obviously it was just like one little conversation, but it really started getting into my head, that like gave me some confidence that yeah, everyone around me had this level of like resources growing up, but yet we're still in the same place studying the same exact things, and sometimes I might be even beating them on tests, and that just really gave me some confidence. But that doesn't mean that you should always be patting yourself on the back like, oh, great job that you're at this school. It should give you confidence, but you should still constantly have that hunger that got you into Northwestern in the first place, because that's going to help you like in in your career once you're starting off, once you like get to your mid-level manager, and then furthermore if you want to pursue like higher education. So this my recommendation is definitely always have that fire in you that got you into whatever school you end up going to. So that's just a little bit about my experience work at Northwestern.
Sorry, gotta unmute myself. Did you have any experiences like using some of the resources at the Student Enrichment Center? The
Yeah.
thing that Daniel started, maybe you can talk about that because your experience is probably closest to what the incoming undergraduates are gonna see.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that I felt was so great was, so I studied mechanical engineering, and that required a lot of lab courses, and a lot of these labs require a lot of equipment that you, as a student, you're required to buy, and sometimes it'd be $300-400 several times during a quarter, and that as someone who was on a full financial aid, that definitely would have been a lot of money for me. But what was great was Northwestern, before we had to buy it, they would send me an email saying, here's your reduced price. And you might have to pay 10, $20 for a
Great.
$400 thing. And that just the level of help that Northwestern does provide. Like if I ever wanted to go down to Chicago, there were shuttles all the time. And I remember that the first year I was paying not that much, but then the year afterwards, my financial situation did change a little bit, and Northwestern actually increased my aid to the point where
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty much getting paid to go to school. Which I mean, that just the level of support that Northwestern does give. In my junior year of school, I was able to land a few fairly well paid internships, and my family definitely would have was going to benefit from that a lot. And as someone who doesn't come from a lot of connections, whereas a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
other student body does, I really wanted to take these internships. So what happened with I was able to work with my counselor. He was super supportive. He understood where I was coming from, and he helped me structure my schedule in such a way that every time I was actually on campus, I was able to overload my classes so much that I was able to take off nearly my full junior year of college and still graduate within 4 calendar years of graduating from high school. So I essentially only spent 3 years in school, and that
Mm-hmm.
was
Wow.
it was really great. Like, sure, with mega overloading during my senior year and my last quarter of sophomore year, it was tough. It was really tough. Like I'll be the first to admit, like sometimes I got the lowest grade out of a class of 100 people, and but like my counselor, he would talk directly with these professors, and I mean these professors, they're the top of their industry, and they would take some time for me. Like one of my professors, Professor Colgate, like I was getting an F in his class. I know we're not graduated, but he would sit with me once a week for about 2 hours. And this guy has his own company to run on top of being such a great professor. And it just showed me the level of dedication that the professors at Northwestern have for their students, especially the empathy that they have for us. Like it is, I would imagine it is quite easy to get like not be able to empathize with people who come from our backgrounds. Like you have people coming from 60, $70,000 boarding schools who have taken multivariable calculus or linear algebra in 11th grade or 12th grade, whereas I'm coming from I barely had calculus available at my high school. And so there is a learning curve to coming to a school, but I was just really impressed at how supportive all the faculty was at the school, and I really appreciated that.
Got to get myself unmuted. Yeah, yeah, that's really great. Thanks for sharing all that with us, Paris. Um, let's move on to next up is Daniel.
Hi everybody, my
Daniel,
name's Daniel.
yeah.
How you guys doing? So yeah, I graduated a little while ago. I graduated with a degree in communication studies. My concentration was in business and Latino studies. Um, I think Northwestern is a great place. I've transferred between 3 of the 6 undergraduate schools. So the quarter system makes it really easy to still be able to graduate on time. I know my junior year, if I would have taken an extra class in the fall, I could have graduated still a semester early. Which is really nice. And if you're really indecisive as me, that was the perfect setup. So a little bit of background about myself. My parents brought me to the States when I was 5 years old. I kind of grew up going to, Title I schools, large urban environment. When I was, I think 15 or 16, my parents actually sat me down and they were like, so we can't really pay for your college. You're going to have to figure this out. And, even from a very early age, I think finding and trying to pick what school to go to was a bit of a luxury. I thought of it as a big privilege because I really just wanted to go somewhere that would be able to pay for me to attend, because I wasn't going to be able to make up the cost in other ways. Thankfully, I did fall upon the Questbridge Scholarship. Again, it connects like low income, high achieving students with, the top need blind schools in the country. Thankfully, Northwestern was one of those schools. I really was attracted to, the variety of majors they had, because I wasn't fully set on what I wanted to do. Their flexibility and just giving me like a complete kind of college experience. To be quite honest, I didn't really necessarily know what to expect, maybe economically, socially. I really I had grown up a place that was very, very segregated, so I didn't really even know what to expect. I think that leading into my first year of college, it was a bit of a culture shock. To say that I grew up in a pretty homogenous place where people were very similar would be an understatement. My high school actually had 4 Daniel Flores's. So going to the Northwestern, being the only one, was nice, but I think realizing very quickly that I was coming from a very different background than most people. I remember very vividly, I know the stories about, telling what your parents did. My parents didn't go to school. My dad worked, he was a waiter, he was a janitor. He did a lot of jobs that my peers weren't necessarily doing. And I think it was a lot of things to navigate through that. I think even day one, when I was moving into my dorm, the guy across the hall, literally right in front of me, brought a TV bigger than I'd ever seen in a long time. And that was just for his dorm room to play video games. So I think very quickly I realized there was going to be a little bit of difference in understanding that not everything, you're not coming from the exact same place. I think that kind of manifested itself. And back then we didn't have the student enrichment services department. It was a very different place. So we kind of just had to fend for ourselves, and realizing that not all advice was catered, or they didn't fully understand your background. For example, I remember when I was going into my math placement exams, they kind of asked me like, what was your AP things? And I said, I passed my AP, AB cycle of calculus. I think I got a 3. And then they're like, oh, you'll be just fine. Let me just throw you into the next one. And very quickly I realized when I was put into that class, like everyone in that class had gone to, like a very selective high school, smaller, very well resourced. And I just realized that the advisors didn't know I was coming from an environment where I was in a class of like 35, 40 students, like, again, I was kind of teaching myself through the whole process and understanding that she was just kind of assuming that I was like a lot of other students that were coming from more privileged backgrounds. So very quickly, I just kind of had to realize that I had to find other individuals like myself that I could relate with, that I could trust, and that can just give me some good advice. I think very quickly, there's a scholar from Harvard, and he kind of does research on different groups of like low income first generation students. And I wish I would have known this going in, that there's kind of 2 different kind of sects. So then it kind of breaks off that there's the group of students that are like the privileged poor. So they might be coming from like, they grew up socioeconomically disadvantaged, but they ended up going to really good magnet schools, really good prep schools. So when they got to college, they were really, really prepared academically, even in some points socially, to be acclimated. And then the other group of students, which kind of resonated more with me, went to large urban schools, didn't necessarily have the most resource areas, and they were called like the doubly disadvantaged. So these were individuals, and when they got to college, they really had a bigger learning curve to meet. And I found myself being part of that. And I think really what helped me was kind of understanding that I had to advocate for myself. I had to find individuals that I could trust, that understood me, that I felt comfortable going to, finding mentors that, again, at the time, it was a little bit different. It wasn't necessarily as available. There wasn't a department. So I really had to seek out those resources. But ultimately, that's just kind of the name of the game when you're a first gen low income student at whatever institution you end up, because there are a lot of different things that make it a little bit challenging, no matter what resources are already in place. And yeah, I think through that, I think building community, and some of my closest friends are still part of my scholarship program. Even now as an alumni, being able to give back and, see people that are coming from my perspective and saying like, hey, like, it's going to be a challenge, but at the same time, like, here's a roadmap that helped me, or here's some resources that I found along the way that really helped me out.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Since you started the student enrichment center, can you talk a little bit about like some of the supports just for like basic living, like housing insecurity, food insecurity, things like that?
Absolutely. There's a lot of stories back then because we didn't have that.
Yes.
I remember one day, I mean, one summer, I think I don't know, one of the where I had stored my winter clothes kind of got broken into. So like I didn't
Oh,
have
no.
a jacket. So I had people would make fun of me. I'd be wearing like 2 or 3 sweaters everywhere I was going. But now, thankfully, I mean, the Student Resource Center, when we put ideas and things that we needed, it was just like we need clothing. You know, there's people coming from, you know, climates or different parts of the country that aren't used to having a winter coat. Like if anything happens, they'll go to it. You know, one year I accidentally my laptop broke and I didn't have any money, so I really had to pick up a job or two extra to make more money. And you know, I also like taught myself how to cut hair, so I was cutting people's hair to make money for that laptop. Again, like they have loaner systems, they have even grant programs, so they can give you those resources. Um, at the time, you know, it was when we wanted to go into Chicago, sometimes you didn't have money to go all the way down there or do things. Now they have, you know, they can give you a weekend pass, so you can spend unlimited, you have unlimited rides on the transit system to go down to Chicago. There's different museums that you can get in through with your student ID card. There's tutoring programs you can take advantage with. You know, if you want to go to a conference, they have funding for that. If you need professional clothing for an interview, there's literally a closet, or they'll give you just, you know, like about a stipend, and you can just go and buy new things. Obviously, as an alumni looking back, seeing how like I really had to hustle to get all of those things that were a necessity but I didn't necessarily have, it does make me feel a lot better. I'm a little, you know, I'm a little salty to see that, but I'm just, you know, happy that advocacy, that students now don't have to go through what we had to go through back then. Because you know, it did add up. It was very difficult. I think even now they have a more streamlined process, so to identify financial needs, so you don't have to reapply to every little thing when you need money. You just have a centralized thing that you do at the beginning of the year, and then if you qualify, when you do the different programs, they'll just say, okay, what's your financial need level? Great, we'll just go from there. Because that, you know, that process was really taxing, and feeling like you had to explain yourself or make a case for yourself, just because you're coming from a different financial situation than most students. It's nice to see, and having advocates or staff members that are there to help you along the way, I think has been really, really invaluable for a lot of students now.
I always forget to unmute. Yeah, can you tell us about like some of like the you know, unusual experiences, well, at least unusual for Figley's, like, you know, people going on foreign study, people doing what would have been unpaid internships, you know, or, you know, somehow we end up to pay them. Do you have any experiences or know people like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for me personally, unfortunately, I think certain experiences in Northwestern, I just saw the sticker price and it seemed like it was not feasible for me. I think study abroad as an undergrad, I got to do it in grad school, but in undergrad, it just didn't seem like feasible to me. You know, just like looking at the price of a flight over there, just understanding that students were traveling every weekend, it just didn't seem like the place for me. And I think even with my studies, it was just like it was going to make things a little bit tight. It felt like a luxury. It felt like I was going to go on vacation. I
Yeah.
other peers made it work, and they really enjoyed it. I think they really valued their experience, what they got to do. I think for me, the way I worked out, like with the student group, I was really working a lot with the Questbridge students, with my own music thing. So I think I staying on campus for when normally people went abroad, it worked for me. But I think it is possible, and I think that's the thing about Northwestern too. It's just like, or any of these institutions, like don't let money be an option or being like an obstacle for you. These institutions are incredibly well endowed. Northwestern is top 10, like basically wealthiest schools, and they have a lot of money to support you. And if you can't seem to find the funding with the program right away, just there's so many other resources and places to pull it from. I had an unpaid internship during one of my that I got class credit for. Because I was getting class credit for, they didn't let me get paid. But I think through that, I still needed money to go take the train every day, get down there. Working with my employer to make that happen has been really helpful. I know now that's changed, where it's been, if you need funding, you need transportation, you need clothing, you need professional attire, they'll handle that. But back then, I think it was just very like finding creative ways of getting it done. There's a lot of different ways. I've had other peers, you know, had research grants, and like research has sent them to other countries. Like I had friends that, you know, originally from Latin America, and then they did a research project that they got to go spend time with their family and get class credit and get professional experience. So there's a lot of different ways to use the resources at hand in a way that's going to benefit you.
Okay, fine. Muted again. Yeah, okay, great. Thanks so much, Dan, for that presentation. Next up, we have Joel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joel Pettit. My background is very different than most here because as Karen said, I graduated from Kellogg in 2017. So went to UCLA undergrad as a FGLI there. And to be frank, the feeling will not be any different if you're a FGLI and you go to any level of school. And why is that? And you've kind of heard Paris and Daniel talk about it, because you will be constantly learning your entire life. And as the previous two speakers said, I had the same kind of family, which was my father was blue collar, and he basically inspected airplane parts for the government, and my mother cut hair off and on and took care of us kids. So when I looked into going to college, I was the baby of 4 kids. They said, yeah, we're not gonna be able to pay for this, so you're gonna have to figure it out, which I did. It was difficult, but at UCLA, it was very, very difficult because it had so many students that the programs, you're lost in the sauce, so to speak. And then when I went straight from there to Washington University in St. Louis for law school, kind of the same feeling. Now, once I was in the Marine Corps, got out, and the first thing that I was saying to Karen the other day was the culture was very different. Meaning, when I interviewed at different schools, I mean, Wharton, Harvard, University of Chicago, the questions were very professional based. Whereas at Northwestern, the questions were very they're personality based, which I knew they would be, but there was a sense of caring about my background, and they didn't assume because I was an attorney that I was rich or that I knew exactly what I wanted to do, because I had never grown up with investment bankers. I didn't know what investment banking was. When someone said there was a banker, I was like, oh, they must be the person you give your money to. So a teller or a consultant. Didn't know what the heck a consultant was. And Kellogg being the #1 consulting school in the world, that was not a very good look for me in that interview. But the questions were more geared toward what I had to do to get the GMAT score that I did, and how it was being an attorney and working with service members, and why I chose that path vice going to a larger firm. And I think what it was is the interviewer was really trying to get down to who I was and what possibly would drive me to keep pursuing degrees from great institutions. And that's just something that didn't happen at any other school. And when I was at Kellogg, I know that, again, I was a little lost because I had no business training. My undergrad degree was in history with a minor in philosophy. So that had nothing to do with math or marketing. So I could probably be a good salesman, but that's about it. Because that's what my job is now as a litigator. I sell people on ideas and my theories of cases. So kudos for me on that one. But when it came to everything else, I was lost. So they knew that it was going to be a huge, just massive learning curve for me, because most of my colleagues at the top MBA programs, you have average of 5 years of experience, and most are coming from the MBB consultancy, so McKinsey, Bain, BCG, and they take the top 1% of students from the top universities in the world, and they mostly majored in mathematics. So they made sure that when I was choosing my schedule, that they said, my counselor was saying, this is a good professor. He or she will take time to, get to know you and understand your specific issues. And they weren't just talking about that I didn't know anything about business, but that it was that the way I thought they knew would be different than most, because no matter who tells you anything, because most of you probably don't have lawyers in your families, law school does change the way you think. That's the purpose of law school. It's kind of like a brainwashing, a good brainwashing, but still a washing. And then also the Marine Corps is, everyone knows, is purposeful brainwashing. So I had 2 cycles of brainwashing, and they really tried to pair me with professors who they knew weren't just looking for that rising star out of Goldman Sachs or McKinsey, who could just get a perfect 100 in the course and just go back to where they were working at. And the nice thing is it worked. My summer internship was at Goldman Sachs, so it was, I think, 200,000 people applied, and 35 people got selected for that internship. So I was very proud to be one of them. And during my second year, I worked at a venture capital firm. It was with the National Association of Realtors. They actually own a small venture capital firm where they try to integrate AI and different technologies into real estate development and how to sell real estate. And again, that's something that I never would have thought that I would be able to do. But I had great people, not just around me, students, but I had a mentor, Professor Corona. He worked for Dell for 20 years in HR, and now he has his own leadership consulting company. But again, he kind of took me under his wing, and because he also does all the leadership courses at Kellogg. And I wanted to look into it. So I said, hey, I know leadership from, leading groups of Marines in the law. And I also deployed to Africa doing counterintelligence. And he said, you lead differently, but you don't need my courses. Don't waste your time on my courses. Focus on, because I wanted to do behavioral analytics and a lot of fun stuff. So I triple majored in finance, accounting, and economics being mainly behavioral economics. So I had a dash of psychology in there. But it was that kind of mentorship that guided me throughout Kellogg. And that's why, even though I focused in finance for my 2 internships, I ended up taking a job in the US intelligence community, doing counter-espionage and counterintelligence across the DIA, CIA, and FBI. And again, I don't know why I went back into government afterwards Kellogg, but it was the mixture of those skill sets just made a lot of sense to me. And again, I don't think in most schools, like if I were at Wharton or U of C, I don't think that mentorship would have happened to drive me to that, because to be frank, a lot of schools' rankings, especially professional schools, is based on hiring statistics. And I guarantee you, me going to the intelligence community did not tick any boxes and did not help Kellogg get 1 skosh higher in the rankings. And yet I had professors who have chairs at the school, so they are very invested in that school, and they're pointing me towards somewhere that's not going to help their ranking. That it just does not make any sense to most people's minds, and it shouldn't. But that's how Northwestern is. They're doing what's best for you, and if what's best for you is not always in their best interest, it's okay, because they understand that they're creating a community. And to that end, when I went from the intelligence community to the healthcare executive world, who do you think I called? All my classmates, who gave me the inside track to understand what was these certain companies' main fires I would be hired to put out. My classmates, or former classmates, I should say. So that's a community that I just had a call with someone just the other day about that, because they needed help designing an algorithm to do algorithmic staffing for their doctors and nurses. Well, I wrote one of those, but it was for terrorists. Then I realized, I was like, hey, what's the difference when it comes to staffing? It's people, it's hours needed. There is no difference. Although you may think there isn't. So, but again, they knew that I went to a job that did something like that. So though that network will never die. It just keeps getting stronger. And lastly, because I don't want to drone on forever, my advice to, my advice to all the Figleys is this, who are applying is, I am an interviewer for the DC area for undergrads, not for early decision, but for regular decision. So I have a whole list of people who I will be interviewing. And to give you that inside track, it's not like truly inside knowledge, but with my background, I am the person you probably don't want to have interview you, because I can tell when you're being honest or not. But what I'm saying is, be honest, just be yourself, because a lot of kids who have more resources, and when I say that, I'll just call it what it is, they have a lot of money. And there's going to be a lot of money thrown toward consultants and to teach you how to create a narrative for an interview and for your applications. Yes, that's good because it helps you design how you want to tell your story, but it should be your story. And so when you're answering questions, make sure it makes sense. So if you're not the reincarnation of Mother Teresa, just because you don't say those exact words, don't make yourself out to be that. You're a kid. I was a kid. You may say, well, I'm a young adult. We're kids. It's okay. You should have time with your friends. You shouldn't be saving the world. You can be trying to, you can hope to, you can be helping people, you can be helping animals, whomever. But I like hearing stories about who you are, because if I hear a story about who you or who a consultant makes you out to be, I'm not knowing you. And as an interviewer, I will admit that I have written things like, I don't know this person, or I couldn't get a straight answer out of this person, because for better or worse, I am a consultant. I'm a legal consultant. People consult me every day. That's what I get paid to do. So I know how to put words in people's mouths. And believe me, the interviewers, we love to get to know you. We do. That's why we do it. Because I don't get paid to do it. I don't get a gold star, nothing like that. So please, if you're not saving the world, if you're saving your family, if you're helping your friends, that is great. Don't downplay it. Don't, it's fine, because that's the truth that we want to hear. And that's my advice to you coming up, because I think that will be the most useful advice to you.
Okay, thanks so much for that. And next up, I'm getting my own echo. Next up is Marcia Griggs.
Thank you so much. How exciting this is to be on this panel with these folks. And if I looked at all distracted, it was because I was trying to find out where Daniel got his purple pullover, because I want that and I need that in my life. So I live far away from Evanston now, so I don't get to go to the bookstore and shopping. But I will share just a little bit of my background. And unlike my fabulously impressive co-panelists, I went to Northwestern when the internet was still a baby. So long time ago compared to the folks who are coming in 2023. But I will tell you, hearing the stories, my experiences were so similar to folks who graduated just 3 years ago. And I imagine that folks coming into Northwestern now might have experiences very similar to the positive experience that I had. So I will say that I came in very academically prepared to be at Northwestern. You can call me a standardized test nerd. I don't know how or why it happened, but just somehow, like, I just, they didn't stress me out. But I was completely socially ill prepared to be in college, to be going on to the future. I was 18 years old and I was like, oh, there's no curfew here. Bet, let's go. Those were my real life thoughts. And my focus in going to college as a first-gen student was, okay, yeah, I want to go to a good school, because this is how I get the good job. And so then I can, take care of everyone in my family. I can have rich money and live happily ever after. Those were the thoughts of me at age 17 and 18. I college was a means to an end, and I did not understand the journey or the transition at all. And so fortunately, Northwestern provided me with so much mentorship and so much support, especially at a time when I didn't have enough sense to know that I needed help. You know, I couldn't get a job with my SAT scores. I could only go so far with that. You know, I needed soft skills. I needed to understand what things were appropriate to bring up during an interview and what things weren't, you know, fast forward a few years. And I'm just so grateful for the faculty and for the administration and for my student colleagues who were with me at NU, because I would not have made it past college but for them. So when I came into Northwestern, like I said, I'd come from a very very strong prep school academically that I had attended on scholarship. I also was coming out of the foster care system. So at age 18, my support network, I had no address. My address was the dorm that I lived in at school. And I knew that I had to have some type of internship or some kind of job or some kind of summer class, because I had to have housing for 12 months of a year, not just 9. I had no family members, no safe adult that I could, you know, go see for, you know, spring break or Christmas break. So college literally was everything for me when I entered as a first-gen student. And I was delighted to learn. And then I knew Northwestern was a great school. I didn't know about ranks. I just knew it was on the lake. Campus was lovely and I was going to have fun there. I'm so fortunate to have gone to a school that has the endowment and the resources that Northwestern has. And I think everyone else has said, you know, yeah, if they're taking care of me financially, this is important. I could have gotten, and I did get financial offers from other schools. A scholarship, no matter how big, no matter, you know, what school it came from, meant nothing to me when I was entering college if it didn't cover literally books, incidentals, transportation, and summer housing stipends. I mean, that is how below broke I was when I came to Northwestern. And, you know, I just say that to say it means everything to know that, you know, I could focus on learning and being in school. I didn't have to take on like a full-time job while I was a freshman in college, just to survive, just to live. So the resources were wonderful. For me, what stands out among many things is the community. In my dorms, in my dining hall, in my classes, in my walk, in my social activities, I met people like me. I met Black students who weren't first-gen students, whose parents had gone to college. And I can tell you, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that we didn't call them second-gen students, but I didn't know that they existed. And I met folks who were first gen, like me, of, you know, different races from different cities and locations. And, you know, I can talk about that mightily right now, but when I was a teenager and, you know, I'm living in Evanston, Illinois for the first time, those folks, those friends that I made, those people, whether or not, you know, we ate at the early dinner in this dining hall or we ate on North Campus, the fact that I had that network, and that even right now I can reach out to someone and say, oh yeah, we were at NU together. And it doesn't matter whether we were, you know, whether we rushed together, went to the same sorority, ate in the same dining hall, that kind of just friendship, collegiality, the network that I have, the personal network, my wonderful friends with fancy, wonderful jobs, just cool people that I love, and just people that I know we share this bond at Northwestern that I would not ever hesitate to reach out to if I needed to refer a client or get a resource or consult on something. And that, you know, at the time, it was just fun. These are my friends. But today, I just really think that Northwestern, you know, it is, and it was my village. It was my village, and it helped me to get to the place that I am now, where I'm free to be myself and do the things that I want to do. I saw Black professors at Northwestern. In the entirety of my high school, 4 years of high school, I never once saw any person of color. Well, technically my Spanish teacher, but I saw no pigmented human being in upper education. And at Northwestern, I did see that. And I took classes with some of those professors, some I didn't, but just knowing they were there put me in a position to never, ever question, can I do this? Can I do X? Can I do Y? It never dawned on me that I couldn't, or that I wouldn't be able to, or that I'd be the first gen, or the first person to ever do this, or the first former foster kid to do, like, none of that mattered, because what I was just seeing, just walking, again, up Sheridan Road in the cold to the North Campus, I just saw it happening before, so it never dawned on me that it couldn't happen for me. And I didn't think I wanted to be a professor. I thought I wanted to be done with school when I graduated. And I did. I worked in industry. I went to law school. I practiced law. And somehow I made my way back to now teaching. And I hope that I'm the person that folks see in the classroom, and I share my story openly, so perhaps they can see, you know what? Yeah, I may not be you, but there's no doubt in my mind that I could be this if I wanted to. Anyway, that's my kind of my touchy-feely story about Northwestern. And if I get the chance, I'll share with you all my experience transferring, because when I say if I could do it all over again at Northwestern, I would. I absolutely would, and I absolutely did do that. So for those of you considering Northwestern, believe me, you're focusing in the right place. You could not have a better educational experience than you'd find at Northwestern.
Okay, that's great. Thanks so much, Marcia. Can you talk a little bit about that? You said, like, I know you've told us that you transferred out and then you transferred back in. And can you talk a little bit about the differences between Northwestern and a different university? You don't have to name it, but
Oh, sure. No,
Yeah.
I've nothing to hide. And I'm happy to say you can be absolutely, test smart or academically prepared and just be just as stupid as the turnips on the truck, because that's me. That was me. I had no social clue. I had no polish, just nothing. And so I decided, all these wonderful things I'm telling you about Northwestern, my first year, the parties, just everything. It was just so great. I'm like, oh, this is college. And I thought that meant every college would be like that. And so I did. I transferred to a college that I had been admitted to, but didn't go to because I didn't get enough money. I'm like, I got money. And again, age. When the internet was a baby, everyone that was a basketball fan wanted to be, I guess, on the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic area, at this one school that was just really doing great things with basketball. So I went to that school, and I went to the games, and I got the student tickets, and I had fun. But I can just say, and it was a wonderful school. And if my kids ever wanted to go to that school, I'm like, yeah, if you can't get to Northwestern, it's fabulous. But here's the thing, all the things that made Northwestern what it was for me, they were missing. The type of academic advising. And again, for people who have the resources, college counselors, or I don't know, family, neighbors that can say, hey, you're gonna need to look at this or think about these things. I had none of that. And I didn't notice that I didn't have it because someone at Northwestern was going, hey, it's your time to register. Are you ready? Do you have these things? Are you looking ahead of time? Well, here, just think about this. Here's an email, or, think about these things. We're not going to tell you what course you have to take, but we're going to help you and make sure you don't mess up. There was no one doing that for me at this other place. There was no one asking, are you one of the few people who needs this? Because most people know these things. I saw the difference immediately. And again, it was a wonderful place. I'm not describing some very poorly ranked school. I'm describing a wonderful school. But as a first-gen person, as a person who needed answers, even when I didn't know what questions to ask, there was no one there checking for me and helping me. And I picked up the phone. I didn't even use email. I picked up the phone and I called the admissions office. I didn't even know if I asked for someone by name. I don't remember what I did, but I said my name. Hi, I want to come back. Take me back, please. Take me back. You can't quit me now. I didn't even spend my entire sophomore year at this other school. I returned, and they gave me my financial aid. They, made sure I was set and everything. And I just share that whole story is just about the gym that Northwestern is and was for me. Even when I thought, I'm going to try something else, they were like, no, okay, we'll take you back. I didn't have to fill out another document. I didn't have to request anything. They're just like, here we go. And I graduated in 4 years. I didn't miss any credits or anything. And I did internships. I did, again, wonderful, wonderful experience. And many other schools, and I've worked at some of those schools, would say, okay, sure, get in line, apply again, or do these things. Northwestern did none of that. They welcomed me with open arms, and I said, I'm never going to break it with you again, ever, ever, ever. And I did name the school Hoyas.
Whoops, I'm not unmuted again. Yeah, we're so glad you came back, and we're so glad you're a Northwestern alum. So thank you for sharing that story. So we finished with all of our panelists, and I think the questions are open. So if anybody has questions, please just feel free to put them in right now. And we're going to do one quick go around with the panel again and let them give like their sort of 5 or 10 seconds of soundbite advice, their soundbite wisdom of what they would tell today's FGLIs, either applicants or students. So let's go in the same order as before. Paris?
Yeah, for sure. So it might be a little bit longer than 10 seconds, but I'll try to keep it short. This is not necessarily for FGLIs, but one thing that I definitely didn't do right in college was I took a year, or pretty much a year off school, not paying attention to the people that cared about me on campus, my friends, my ex-girlfriend, my girlfriend at the time. Make sure that no matter what point in your life, you pay attention to these relationships that you care about, because in the end, like, you'd be working at Goldman Sachs or McKinsey or whatever, that doesn't matter. Having the money, like, as someone who came from this background, obviously money is extremely important, want to be financially secure, but at least for me, the real happiness comes from, getting drinks with my friend, calling them up after not talking to them for a week or a week and a half or something like that, like getting a text from them that we're going on a trip, that's what really matters to me. And it took me a long time to really understand that, really process after I kind of messed up in my junior year in college. But I would just recommend that whatever you do, whatever point in your life, pay attention to those who care about you and who you care about.
Okay, great. That's great advice. Daniel, what do you have to add?
Absolutely. I think the idea of also remember that you deserve to be at Northwestern or any of these elite top tier schools. A lot of us have gone through a lot of adversity. Not to say that everyone that goes and gets into these schools, the majority of students aren't qualified, but there's been even more hoops that we've had to kind of jump through and get through, over more hills to climb to get where we're at now. So at Northwestern or wherever you end up, like, it might feel a little different at first, but just remember, you guys are coming from different places, but in 4 years, you're all going to be leaving with the same degree. You're going to have 4 years of shared experiences. And again, being a first-gen professional, it's a whole other conversation, but it's really, now you're going to have so much more in common with people. I think more than anything, a big part that I think I wish I would have learned earlier on is just, you got to like combat your own biases. I think, for some of us who come from immigrant households, low income, first gen, we always think of a scarcity mindset, like, oh, I'm lacking this, or I don't have Y, so that puts me lower than someone else. And you got to look at it from like an asset base, from a versus deficit. So think about everything you're bringing to the table. Like, life might not have like dealt you the best hand, but look where you're at now. You're at places where people that had resources you could have never imagined, and you're at the same exact place. So just kind of combating that. Obviously, again, what Paris was saying about like your friendships are invaluable. You can't put a dollar amount on that. And I feel like on experiences too, don't put a dollar amount on experiences sometimes. Like, you have the rest of your life to work. You will graduate, you'll get a good job. But then you're not going to have college ever again. So again, I'm not telling you like just whip out a credit card, be reckless. Money doesn't matter in college, but at the same time, it's just like there are some lived experiences you might not be able to have again. So don't let money do that. And again, there's always a way to be creative about it at these schools.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for that. Next up, Joel. Is Joel still here? Okay, maybe we'll move on to Marcia.
Sure. I see Joel.
Oh, okay. Joel, did you want to jump in? Do you have any like sound bites or wisdom you want to share? He may be off.
We
Okay.
can't hear you. So, well,
Go
I'll
ahead.
say this, my soundbite for folks applying to college who are first generation students: be your authentic self, whoever that is. Be yourself. I, I shared my background. When I got to school, I was around people, even if they were first gen, they had parents, they had actual parents that they could go home to, whether or not their parents had gone to college. And I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I didn't fit in. I couldn't relate to the stories, that they would share. And I wanted to be someone different. I wanted to be a person that, had these stories about what our family was going to do over break, and, or different things. And I'm not even referring to families with money, just the difference. And there were times where I wanted to be someone else. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to kind of be in a corner somewhere and just, not be me. But I am me, and I was me then, and I found my place, and I found my people, and all my people accepted me as I was. I was their, I keep saying colleague because I've been working for so long, but I was their friend. I was either a person who lived in their dorm or a person in their class, and being myself only helped me. I never had to pretend or act like I knew something when I didn't. It was fabulous. And so I would say any college that requires you to be someone else, or to forsake your own background, or to act a different way, then that school isn't accepting you. It's accepting, some image of you or some catalog pose. So just make sure that you can remain true to yourself, stay proud of yourself, even if your pathway isn't easy or pretty. Own it. It's yours. It's yours. It's yours. It's yours. And someday in the future, your struggles, your differences will motivate and inspire other people. They will believe that they can do it because they saw what you went through. So whatever situation you're coming out of into college for, just stay true to yourself. Be your authentic self, and let other people see the real you.
I'm not unmuted again. Thank you so much for that, Marcia. We just have a few minutes left, and we'll go to questions. I'm just going to open these. Are pretty broad, so I'll just open them up to the panel, and any or all of us can jump in. The first one is, what's student life like at Northwestern? Like the campus vibe, housing, social life. Was it easy to make friends and feel part of the community when you first got there? So anyone can jump in. I will just, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, again, for me, I had gone to a prep school where there was zero diversity other than me in the entire 4-year classes. So for me, going to Northwestern and having a Black house, like, it was just so exciting for me. Today, I think it's called the Multicultural Center. But the point is, for me, I think because it's bigger than your high school. I think, different affinity organizations, groups, students from different backgrounds, it's wonderful to get out there and you can affiliate, and you certainly are part of the broader community as well. But for me, I was pleasantly surprised at how much fun I had at this quote unquote brain school. These are things I shouldn't tell parents of teens coming to college, but and they reinstituted Dillo Day. Like, I had a lot of great social outings, a lot of fun, a lot of good vibes, even in winter in Evanston. So there is fun to be had. Don't be fooled. There's plenty of fun to be had, probably more than you need.
Okay. Yeah, and I would just say, like, I think it still exists. Am I unmuted? Yes, I'm unmuted. Sort of the divide between campus, like, you can even find sweatshirts with this on it. Like, there's Nerdwestern and Northwasted. So there's sort of two different types of social cultures on campus, and you can go back and forth between the two very easily. And the other thing I would recommend to first gens is, like, I lived in the International Studies residential college, and it's just like the rest of Northwestern. There's very rich and prominent people's children, and I think extremely rich. Like, I lived down the hall from the president of Kenya's daughter, things like that. So, but it's just because they're not all from the United States, it's just a different vibe. It's like they don't form like one culture and you have to figure out how to fit into it. They were all from different cultures, so it was great because we all kind of felt lost in the United States. So if you're interested in international things, or if you just want to develop an interest in international things, I would definitely recommend ISRC. Does anybody else have anything they want to add on that one? The culture?
Yeah, just a
think-
quick that. Oh, after
Yeah,
you,
go
Daniel.
ahead. Yeah.
Okay. After you,
Paris.
Daniel.
Okay. No, that's
Uh,
so Midwestern. No, you go first. No, you.
So many manners. Yeah, I would just say Northwestern's super student driven. They have over 500 student groups. They make more every year. There's just so many different ways to get involved, whether that's community service, music. I started 2 student groups. One was a Quest Bridge group, another one was a mariachi ensemble we did. So if you can't find something that you're interested in, it's really cool to be able to start something up with school support and also find like-minded people to kind of create your own space. If there's certain ones that you don't necessarily vibe with, or you just want to add on to the culture.
Right. And then Paris,
Yeah.
did you want to?
Yeah. Oh, no, I am off mute. No, my experience, at least, especially in the first couple of weeks, they did such a great job with orientation. Every single day, they give you opportunity to hang out with the other people who are in your class, especially as a transfer student. They did such a great job, and I mean, every night you're probably shouldn't be saying this, but like going out to finding what frat houses has a couple people open. Do you have enough ratio? All that stuff. Like it's all the fun stuff in college that, despite what background you come from, like you're gonna partake in it if you want to. You don't have to, but they did such a great job in the orientation that definitely provides a great foundation for the rest of your college experience.
Okay. Okay, right. And okay, so that we have on this question, because it looks like we're out of time. So I know there's a few questions we didn't get to. We'll try to answer them maybe after the chat, just personally. But thanks so much. Thanks to our panelists. This was really great. And thanks to all the students for coming. So, and with that, we'll say good night. Go Cats.